Hello everyone, this is Roya here at Unicorn Hunter Books. So I am going to tell you guys about the 5 books that I read in the first half. The first book that I read is Zenith by Sasha Alsberg and Lindsay Cummings, and I had, kind of so-so expectations of this book just because I've heard a few things about, some writing choices that bugged a lot of people, and I was bugged by the same things, but I enjoyed this book so much more than I thought I was going to. So the world building really impressed me, and as someone who loves the absolute crap out of outer spacey sci-fi, I was just very impressed with the level of world building that this had. And then also the plot was really good and very fast paced. I just didn't think that we got enough character depth. But yes, I was bugged by some of the kind of writing style choices. I gave this book 3 stars when it otherwise would have deserved 4. The main thing that bothered me the entire time was some very outlandish metaphors throughout the entire book, like at least once per chapter about, on average. We just got metaphors like she was angry as a wet feline, and I'm like, what the heck? And the one that bothered me the most, I think, was they flew like demons from a pit of fire. They could have just said that they were flying really fast, you could have just said she was angry, you know what I mean? So metaphors have their place, and those ones were just very over the top for the story. And actually the one about demons flying through a pit of fire, or flying like demons out of a pit of fire, was particularly annoying because it was the opening sentence of a chapter. So first of all, you have, who's they? Who's the they they're talking about? And because they don't say that until the next sentence. So that whole first sentence could easily have been cut out. So there were a lot of things like that I kind of was like, what the heck are they talking about? So then the other thing that I was really annoyed by, was sprinkled throughout the story, was a lot more forgivable, but it still was annoying, and that is just how much it's shoved down our throats, how badass everything is. So like practicality is sacrificed for badassery throughout this book, and so, people have, weapons that are not really practical for this world because it's more badass, or whatever it is, like it's just constantly written as, like, look how badass this is. Look how badass this is that this person is doing, or what they look like, or whatever it is. And so I kind of felt like, do you really have to go into that? But honestly, that was pretty forgivable if I started reading it like it was a cheesy sci-fi movie made in the 80s or something like that. So I started kind of thinking that's probably the vibe that I should be reading for, and not necessarily just like, I don't know. So I do recommend this book. I loved how good the plot and the world building was, but if those things about the writing style would bug you too much, then maybe this book isn't for you. But I mean, the writing was otherwise good, but it was just those things that just, really? Next, I read The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan. So obviously this is for our Wad-along read-along that I'm hosting with Jade from Bedtime Bookworm. I will leave the Goodreads link and her channel down below, and basically I liked this book so much more than the first one. So this did have a lot more story to it that was not super reminiscent of Lord of the Rings. A lot of different conflict, it's just a lot more stuff happens. I was kind of bummed that Moiraine had a very small role in this book compared to the previous one, because she's a really awesome character, but I really felt like I loved Ninav in this book, however her name is pronounced, but yeah, I really enjoyed her character a lot more because she got more of the spotlight, and I thought that was really great. Anyway, we will be discussing this book further in our live show. The next book I finished was Markswomen by Rati Mehrotra, and this is about assassins who are bonded to their blades, and it is in an Indian-inspired fantasy world, and I really loved that about it. I thought the concept was super clever, but I felt like this lacked character depth overall, and I kind of thought that it was just okay for most of the book, because at one point it starts to read like literary fiction, and then there's this love triangle that kind of comes out of nowhere, and so this was a little bit of a letdown, but I did think it was still a very good book. And the plot seemed very Lion King-esque and very typical, because it's kind of like, oh no, somebody gets killed and somebody bad takes their place. What are we gonna do? And the main character, like, is exiled and she has to come back and defeat this person. But overall, I did like this book. I just didn't love it the way I expected to. Next, I read the ebook of The Queens of Innis Lear by Tessa Gratton, and this was my most anticipated book release of 2018. And it was on NetGalley as Read Now, so you can just download it and not have to be approved as long as you are a book reviewer on there already. So I thought, you know, even though NetGalley arcs only work on my phone, and reading my most anticipated book of 2018 on my phone is just going to be a pain in the butt, but I did it anyway because I really wanted to read this book, and it was really good, but I did feel like it also got very slow and blah the way that Mark's Woman did. It started off as a really good book, but it also kind of lacked character depth too. So the things I really liked about this book are, first of all, the diversity, because all three main characters are biracial. Gayla, the oldest sister, is seriously amazing. She is so badass. She is everything I wanted to grow up to be when I was a teenager. Like, she is so awesome. And then the other two, though, had like no personality throughout the entire thing, and I felt like there was very, very little character depth. Even though Elia is the main character, she just had no personality. She just seemed like a very generic, bland girl to me. And then Regan was barely in it, and she had one hell of a one-track mind. So I thought that was kind of weird. And so the whole thing was very unfortunately, the whole thing was very devoid of any sort of action, really, and very little conflict. And it's told partially through flashbacks that contributed nothing to the story at all. So we kind of go like, what was the point of that flashback? It's not contributing anything to what's actually going on. So that made it feel very, very slow to me. So I did really like this book still. I just didn't think that it was the amazing thing that I was hoping for in my most anticipated book of 2018. So definitely still go and read it, but just be aware that it is not going to be this action-packed thing or anything like that. It's very much like Three Dark Crowns in that it still centers around three main characters where much of their story gets overshadowed by other stuff, and two of them are not in it as much as the other one and all of that. Except without any sort of actual action in it, and it's just people talking. And the last book that I read in the first half of January is Binti by Nnedi Okorafor, and this is about a girl who moves to a different planet to go to university, and she's from a people who really don't usually send their kids to university, so she's like the only one there she's gonna be the only one there who really comes from her sort of background. She wears red clay all over her skin, basically, that can only be found on her planet, pretty much, and like she's covered in it 24/7. And so I really enjoyed this book. I loved the concept, but I feel like it was just super short, and we didn't get as much character depth or story really at all, but it was very, very good and super creative, and I definitely highly recommend it. These three books plus the two ebooks are what I read in the first half of February. Let me know what you read so far this month, and what your favorite book is of this month so far, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye!